Well, good evening, everybody. After mayor making last week, this council starts a new year. Some of you will have been part of proceedings here for a long time. For others, this may be a completely new experience. Let us pray that all may embrace this new beginning as an opportunity to put to one side all that has been, to appreciate what still remains, and to look forward to what's coming next. So let us pray. Grant, O God, that the councillors gathered here may approach this new year with courage, sure in the faith that while men and women come and go and life changes around us, you are ever the same, guiding us with your wisdom and protecting us with your love. For all the possibilities ahead, make us thankful, O Lord. Give us wisdom and discernment to understand how we can each contribute towards the well-being of the people of this borough, and give us the will and the energy to translate our desires into actions. This evening, as councillors are asked to take on the added responsibility of doing the work of specific committees, we pray that you will grant them a vision for the priorities, a heart to do what is good and right, and the determination to see things through in a timely way. We ask your blessing on us all. May we find time for the tasks ahead, wisdom in our decision-making, appreciation for each other, and a renewed sense of hope for the future. Almighty God, we continue to pray for our Queen and her government. Help all those in high office to govern wisely and well, to seek the welfare of all their people, and to make their contribution to the stability, well-being, and peace of the world, particularly in Ukraine at this time. And as more and more people in our own country are affected by the unusually high price of fuel and food, we pray that solutions may be found to bring relief to the financially most vulnerable among us. These prayers we lay before you, Heavenly Father, in the name of your Son and our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Now, members, as we proceed tonight, we've had the printed agenda distributed, but also we've had a very comprehensive amendment sheet supplied. There have been some updates to the amendment sheet, which I will address as we go through. They're minor, but I think we need to do this in concert with the main agenda items and also the amended update paper. First of all, I'll call for apologies for absence. Councillor Gavin James.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, and congratulations on your mayoralty. Apologies to Councillor Hussey and Councillor Mackay.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Apologies to Councillor Williams.
Councillor Williams, thank you. Councillor Tustine.
Thank you, sorry. Apologies from Councillor Watts, Councillor Grant, Councillor Jones, and Councillor McCormick's on his way, but he's got stuck in traffic.
Thank you very much. I understand there's been a bit of a hold-up locally in traffic. Any other apologies? No? Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest on items on the agenda? There are none. The minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of March. I will move that those minutes will be signed as a correct record unless there's any queries as a matter of accuracy in those minutes. There are none. I will sign the minutes after the... Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Mayor. Now, announcements. I've got some announcements. Paperwork. The announcements I really want to cover tonight are, in the main, aimed at new councillors. We have, at times, come across some misunderstanding for items such as points of order and points of personal representation. Now, the point of order is to do with a constitutional item that has been brought up in debate, and a councillor wishes to call upon a query of what is actually being spoken about. A call for a personal interpretation or explanation is if that councillor has been heard by a second councillor in debate and has been misrepresented. And that essentially is what the difference is between the two. Do I make myself clear? And the references to those, both the point of order is Procedural Rule 8.14 and the points of personal explanation are Procedural Rules 8.15. The other thing I want to point out that when you're called upon by me to speak, you must stand and address the meeting through myself. You must remain silent when another councillor is speaking, unless you wish to make a point of order or that point of personal explanation. Timing is the other thing I wanted to point out. Democratic Services will set the timer running when applicable. Sometimes there's no time limit, but it's when applicable. And I would advise the Speaker when 1 minute is remaining. When I require a Speaker to sum up, I expect a prompt finish. That is in the interest of fairness, that everybody has the same amount of time entitled to speak on an item. Chief Executive, do you have any announcements?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I call upon the leader. Do you have any announcements? Well, I just want to remind you that you are, in fact, the next speaker, Councillor Bowen. So we'll move on from that to membership of Cabinet, and I invite the leader to name his Cabinet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations on becoming Mayor for this municipal year. At a time when people are struggling with rising bills, we have a strong and diverse Cabinet for this coming year, committed to the borough being a place where everyone feels included and thrives. We have reorganised our portfolio areas around our key council priorities, delivering great value services for one of the lowest council taxes of districts in the country, and supporting those who really need it. The focus in all of our work is on achieving our carbon net zero targets and taking action on the ecological emergency. In planning for the future, we want to ensure that we protect our environment while balancing the need for good jobs and somewhere great to live. We will work to attract the best employers and facilitate to the benefit of our residents, including securing investment in a new hospital after all of us hearing what is really important to the people who live in our borough. We must now drive forward on breathing new life into Basingstoke Town Centre, the leisure park, and to make everything in them sustainable for the future. To do that, I'm pleased to announce that John Isaac will continue as my deputy with the portfolio responsibility for finance and property, and I give our residents a pledge as the leader of this council. Our pledge as an administration is to freeze council tax for the year 2023 and 24, and also for 2023-24 to freeze things that make our town centre thrive, so car parking charges. We will be joined by Councillor Carr, who will take the portfolio for homes and regeneration, continuing our focus on those people who find themselves homeless or vulnerably housed. The rest of the Cabinet, with some alterations to their portfolio responsibilities, will be Councillor J. Ganesh for planning and infrastructure, delivering our local plan and ensuring that we deliver only the homes that we need. We have a new title for Councillor Becky Bean's portfolio, which is residential services, making sure that our services deliver for our residents. Jenny Vox will have a new portfolio called Partnerships, because our residents have told us loud and clear how they need us to work with our partners to deliver what they need, whether it be the hospital and the new hospital for our borough, primary care services, or working more closely with our local authority partners at Hampshire County Council. Then finally, we have a renewed focus on the environment and climate change. This will be led by Councillor Hayley Eachus. So we will plan for, and I repeat this pledge, a BIS in every ward of our borough to ensure Saundersfield becomes an ecological haven and to focus all of our activities on delivering that carbon neutrality. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bound. I move on to agenda item number 6, the allocation of seats to political groups, found on page 23 to 28, and as amended and updated in the update paper. Now, the recommendation to Council on page 23 is committee sizes and scheme of proportionality is be approved in order to enable appointments to be made to committees of Council. I will move that from the Chair.
Second it, Chair.
Are we agreed? And I should have asked for any speakers at that point. No speakers, thank you. The second bullet point, that it be noted, this is only for noting, that the detailed committee sizes and scheme of proportionality in Appendix 1 will be circulated separately, and we'll move on to that, due to the close proximity of the election and time to calculate the changes. The third bullet point is to agree, as updated in the update paper, to agree and depart from political proportionality in the allocation of seats to the Standards Committee and the Investigation and Disciplinary Committee. I'll move that from the Chair.
Happy to second it, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any comments or anybody wants to speak to that? No, we will take that as agreed. There is a new recommendation in the update paper under item number 6. It's a new recommendation to note in the recommended scheme of proportionality for 2022-23, the number of seats on the Development Control Committee has increased from 12 to 13 seats. And that is to note. Thank you. Is that agreed, by the way? It's to note on the paper, but you agreed? Okay, thank you. Move on to appointment of committees. Item number 7. To appoint members of the council to the following committees for the council year. Now, in the update paper, this is set out in detail, and I understand it has the support generally of the group leaders. Councillor Gavin James.
Mr. Mayor, if you put yourself on a committee with someone you don't like, because I didn't know what the Conservatives were doing, is there any way I can get that changed, or I just have to suffer it for 12 months?
I thought you were a very patient man, Councillor James, like we all have to be as councillors. Thank you, Councillor James. Is this agreed? As laid out in pages 9 to 13 in the update paper? Agreed? Thank you. Election of committee chairs. Agenda item number 8. Yeah, it's in here. And again, we have nominations. I will go through these, make sure it is on the update paper, and I'll just read these out to confirm them. The nomination for Councillor Tony Jones on the Scrutiny Committee.
Agreed.
Nomination for Councillor Stuart Frost for EPH.
Agreed.
Nomination for Councillor Hannah Golding for CEP.
Agreed.
Nomination for Many Down Overview Committee. Nomination of Councillor Diane Taylor.
Agreed.
Development Control Committee. Nomination for Councillor Nick Robinson.
Agreed.
Licensing. Nomination for Councillor Sven Goddison.
Agreed.
Human Resources. Nomination for Councillor Laura Edwards.
Agreed.
Audit and Accounts. Nomination for Councillor Graham Faulkner.
Agreed.
Now, the Standards Committee, for new councillors especially, is a nomination for Ms., I believe it's Christine Proctor? Camilla Proctor. That is an independent chair on the Standards Committee, and that's the way the Standards Committee is constituted.
Agreed.
Investigation and Disciplinary Committee, nomination for Councillor Hannah Golding.
Agreed.
Vice chairs will be appointed by committees when they at their first available meeting. If that's all agreed, nobody to speak. Thank you. Appointment to joint bodies. Again, we refer to the update paper. To make appointments to the following, I'll take these one at a time. Joint Many Down Committee, to appoint 4 members. Now, the nominations currently are Councillor John Isaac, Councillors John Isaac, Hayley Aegis, Abigail Compton-Bennett, and Councillor Lee. Are there any other nominations? I will move from the chair that is accepted.
Seconded.
Anybody else wants to speak on that subject? No, that is agreed, and they're appointed, duly appointed. Crime and Disorder Joint Security Committee, to appoint 3 members to this Joint Scrutiny Committee. Nominations are for Councillor Edwards, Councillor Sam Jeans, and Councillor Howard Sorrell.
Second that, Chair.
Thank you, and there are no other nominations, I take it. That's duly proposed by me, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, and that is agreed, and they are duly appointed. Hampshire Police and Crime Panel, to appoint a deputy to the panel. Nomination for Councillor Vokes. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Councillor McCormick.
There's one nomination, is that because there's one vacancy?
Would you like to stand up, Councillor
Yep.
McCormick?
There's one nomination, is that because there's just the one vacancy? There are more councillors on the committee?
Right, that is one deputy from us.
Right,
For
okay,
this, there are other appointees on that particular panel.
okay. Because my recollection was that councillor Tony Jones was serving on that panel, and I don't know if he is coming off, and this is a replacement appointment.
Yes. This is up to county, apparently.
Okay,
This is, within our gift here, is to nominate one deputy.
okay, right. I don't have any protest at that at all. I'll accept that as it stands. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCormick. Councillor Bound.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to add something to that as the chair of that scrutiny panel. It might be just Tony Jones is appointed by the Labour Party to make up political proportionality rather than a representative of this local authority. Just a point of clarity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bound. Moving on to patrol is the next one. This is item 4 on this agenda point. Parking and regulation, traffic regulations outside London, adjudication joint committee to appoint one member. The current member is Councillor Laura Edwards, and she is nominated to continue in that role.
Happy to second that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Now, move on to agenda item number 10, appointment to outside bodies. That's the one. Now, we're going to have to go to the update paper for this one, and I've had a couple of changes immediately before we convened this council, and since this document's been printed. I'm going to go through these one at a time, and we don't have anybody vacant on Alderworth Educational Trust or Anvil Arts. Please, until there's a vacancy. Sorry, Alderworth Educational Trust. There's a vacancy to join Councillor Kacheka. Do we have any nominations? No nominations? Right, we'll leave that post vacant. Anvil Arts nomination is for the incumbent, Councillor John Isaac, to continue. Are there any other nominations? Is that agreed? AWE Local Liaison Committee, there's 2 to be appointed with no time limit. There is current is Councillor Stuart Frost, and a vacancy, and it's Councillor Cubitt. Councillor Gavin James.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Slimin, who's much closer to it than Councillor Cubitt. Thank you.
Right, we have 3 nominations for 2 posts. Oh, sorry, 2 nominations for the 1 post. So it's Councillor Cubitt and Councillor Slimin. So do I have a proposer for Councillor Cubitt? Councillor Bound?
I wonder if I may, Mr. Mayor, of course, when we discuss these things, we don't actually know what's going on in the other groups, and we didn't know whether that vacancy would be nominated from somebody who was closer. We're more than happy to withdraw Councillor Cubitt's nomination.
Right. Right, we have 2 vacancies. I'm advised. Councillor Isaac is proposed, and Councillor Slimin. Sorry. A moment. That's what I thought. No Isaac. So it's between those 2. I'm advised that both Councillor Slimin and Councillor Cubitt can sit on that. This is what I was looking at. I'm getting quite confused. Yes. Councillor Bound, if I may, can you confirm Councillor Frost was crossed off the original amendment?
I suppose it might be easy just to clarify our position.
Yes.
That if we have somebody who's a local councillor standing and Councillor Slimin, then we will put only, and there is still 1 vacancy, we will put forward Councillor Frost. If there are 2 vacancies, we will put in addition forward Councillor Cubitt.
Does that help you? That's what I was going for. Right, members. The 2 councillors that are nominated for these 2 councillor posts on this authority, one is Councillor Slimin, one is Councillor Frost. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. I knew we'd get there. Right. Bylaws Management Agency Tadley is vacant. Do we have a nomination? No, remains vacant. Basingstoke Air Cadets? Well, I'm in it and I'm proposing myself.
Second that, Chairman.
Sorry? Is that agreed? I remain in that post?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Basingstoke and Dean Community Leisure Trust. Councillor Cobden Bennett is the current incumbent and is nominated to continue. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Basingstoke Canal Joint Management Committee. I have a nomination of Councillor Tuck. Are there any other nominations? Are we agreed that Councillor Tuck sits on that committee?
Agreed.
Thank you. Basingstoke Citizens Advice. Currently, it is Councillor Leeks and Councillor Vokes, and we've got nominations from Councillor Laura Edwards and Councillor Howard Sorrell. Are there any other nominations? Are we agreed to the nominations? Thank you. Basingstoke Music Festival Committee, we have the incumbents nominated to continue, Councillor Freeman and Councillor McCormick.
Agreed.
Is that agreed? I have a very enthusiastic Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Deputy. Basingstoke Voluntary Action. Again, Councillor Compton Burnett is incumbent and proposed. Councillor Sorrell?
Stand. Oh, yes, stand. You did specify what point of order is, so I'm not sure if this counts, but is there any chance we can just wrap all of them up that don't actually have a vote into one big agreed? It would just save a bit of time.
The answer to that, good question, by the way, is no, because we have various amendments on this particular amendment, on the update paper. And I understand that we're not quite sure if there were other nominations in 2 or 3 of the categories. And we thought the best, safest way was to go through. And welcome to the first selection council that you've ever experienced, because I'm afraid sometimes it can be a little tedious, but we have to get it right. But thank you for the question. I'll try and make it as painless as possible. The Clare School, sorry.
Okay.
Basingstoke ITEC, Councillor Byrne and Councillor Golding at the moment. Councillor Golding to be nominated. Are there any other nominations? No. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Clare School, Councillor Graham Faulkner. That's the Management Committee. And he is nominated. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. District Councils Network, Councillor Rattigan. Councillor Bound is the nomination. Are there any other nominations? No? That is agreed? Thank you. Everest Community Academy Management Group, it's Councillor Ganesh and myself. We are nominated. Are there any nominations? Other nominations? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Four Lanes Community Centre Joint Management Committee is again myself, fairly long-standing now. Is there any other nominations for that? There are none. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Local Government Association. This is for a leader and deputy leader. Currently, Councillor Radigan and Councillor Bound. It's now nominated Councillor Bound and Councillor Isaac. Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Hampshire Building Preservation Trust. I've had to stand down from that, so Councillor Nick Robinson is the nominated proposed person, councillor. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Herbert Plantation Local Nature Reserve Management Committee, councillor Isaac, to continue for another year. Is that acceptable? Is it agreed? Integra North Energy from Waste Plant Liaison Panel. Was councillor Paul Gaskell. Nominations are for councillor Gaskell and councillor Tomlin. Is that... Okay. There's only one there, so I've got two identified nominations. For councillor Tomlin, is there a proposer?
Nominate Councillor Tomlin.
Thank you, councillor Harvey. Is it seconded? Councillor James? All those in favour of councillor Tomlin? Is there a proposer for councillor Gaskell? Councillor Bound, seconder. Councillor Frost. A vote for councillor Gaskell. That's carried. Councillor Gaskell is duly to be represented in Integra. The vote, by the way, is 27 to 19. Colour of the Arts, councillor Ganesh. Here's the nomination. Any other nominations? Agreed?
Agreed.
Local Government Association, General Assembly. Is it given as a leader? Yeah. It's the leader's appointment, so councillor Bound is duly appointed to that. Loddon Social Enterprise Limited. Incumbents, councillor Cubitt. It's a nomination. Any other nominations? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. North Wessex Downs Area Outstanding National Beauty. Again, that's back to me. I'm the incumbent and I'm nominated. And councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nominate Councillor Phillimore.
Councillor Fillmore. And who seconds that proposal? Councillor James. All those in favour of councillor Fillmore? Would you like to propose me, please?
We do it now.
And could a proposer for myself?
Could I propose Councillor Miller, please? Need a seconder. Oh, Councillor Bound seconds it.
Call for the vote, please. Can you call for the vote?
All those in favour of Councillor Miller? Thank you. We do it again.
No, it's all right. And on those two votes, it was 27 to 12. North Hampshire Area Road Safety Council, councillor Robinson and councillor Freeman are the incumbents and nominated as such. Any other nominations? None. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Pamber Forest Local Nature Reserve, councillor Carruthers, nominated again. Any other nominations? Agreed?
Agreed.
Now relate North Hampshire Limited, councillor Bound and Mr. Chris Connor. Mr. Chris Connor is the nomination. Are we agreed? No more nominations. Okay. In this one, Vivid, we have two main nominations. There was previously a vacancy here for Councillor Laura James and Councillor Stuart Frost. First of all, and there will be a vote between those two for that main point. Do I have a nomination for Councillor Laura James, proposer? Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Fillmore. All those in favour of Councillor James? Councillor Frost. Do I have a proposal for Councillor Frost? Councillor Ganesh. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Vokes. All those in favour of Councillor Frost? For that main appointment, it's Councillor Frost 27, Councillor James 12. So Councillor Frost is duly appointed to the Vivid. There is one deputy, Councillor Tustain. Are there any other nominations?
Thank you,
Councillor
Mr.
Harvey?
Mayor. Councillor Laura James.
Councillor Laura James. Right. Right, I'll call for a proposal for Councillor Tustain.
Happy to propose, Mr. Mayor.
Pardon me? Okay, you've got somebody right behind you. Councillor Tustain, that's Councillor McCormick, seconder. Councillor Howard Sorrell. All those in favour of Councillor Tustain? Thank you. And can I have a, did we get a seconder from you? You did, yes. Can I have a vote for, sorry? Councillor, for Laura James, deputy? Have a vote for that, please? For Laura James. Right, Councillor Tustain, 30. Councillor Laura James, 17. So Vivid to be represented by Councillor Frost and Councillor Tustain. Silchester Roman Town Advisory Panel. It's vacant. Proposer is Councillor Carruthers. Do I have any other nominations? No. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. South East England Councils was Councillor Radigan. It proposes, nomination is Councillor Bound. Any other nominations? None. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Tadley and District Citizens Advice Bureau. 1 year, Councillor Carruthers, and that's the nomination. Do we have any other nominations? Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Tadley and District Community Association Executive Committee. Same again, Councillor Carruthers is the nomination. Any other nominations? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Tourism South East, Councillor David Leaks is the nomination. Any other nominations? Nope. Are we agreed? Trustee of Basingstoke Charities. Currently, Mr. Evans, Mr. Connor, and there's two vacancies. We have two vacancies of Mr. Evans and Mr. Connor. Are there any other nominations to that? Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Trustees of Basingstoke Common. I'm pretty sure that the mayor is ex officio on that particular group, and the ward councillors in the extended Old Basing ward And the nominations from that ward are Councillor Goodison and Councillor Cubitt. Are there any other nominations? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Whitchurch Millennium Green Trust, 3-year term. Nomination is Councillor Williams. Are there any other nominations? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Yeah. And the Witches Silk Mill, it's vacant. There's one nomination. Now, I'm going to say that this caused a little bit of discussion, that we've got Councillor Chloe Ashfield is a nominee. Now, under Council Procedure Rules 1.3, it is generally, with the exceptions of standards and one or two of the other charities here, this is for councillors to be appointed to outside bodies. So I'm taking this as Councillor Ashfield as the nomination. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Young People's Information, and Councillor Sorrell, you might be glad we're coming to the end of this, is Councillor Golding, and Councillor Golding is the nomination. Are we agreed? Thank you for your patience, members. It's agenda item number 11, questions from members of the public. No questions have been received. Petitions, there are no petitions. The overview and scrutiny protocol. Now again, I'm going to propose this from the chair. I understand that we have a support from the group leaders on this one, but I will invite anybody who wants to speak on this topic to speak now. Yeah, I propose this from the chair.
Second it.
Are we agreed to accept this protocol? Thank you. Right, move on to a notice of motion, old down, and the proposer is Councillor Samir Kotechka, and we move on to the second in a minute. I call on Councillor Kotechka to announce the motion.
Thank you very much, Chair, Mr. Mayor and Council. Old Down is in Kempshire and Basingstoke. It's an integral part of the quality of life to the local community. It needs to be protected from having any construction proposed for the site due to the importance of Basingstoke. The council should take all steps to designate Old Down as a local nature reserve, which will enhance the local ecological wildlife system. Natural England may, in due course, consider this.
Councillor Kotechka, could you just hang on one, please?
Yeah, sure.
Councillor James?
I put my hand up to speak after the motion.
Okay, Councillor Harvey? Same for speakers, thank you.
No problems. Consider this as and identify this as a site of special scientific interest. Council resolve to request the Cabinet to take all necessary steps to declare Old Down as a local nature reserve. We can do the following things to actually get this done. Talk to the actual leaseholder of the land or the owners and ask them if they would be interested in doing this. Make sure that we do appoint it as a special scientific interest. This can also be done via local planning authorities, giving Old Down a protection against construction of any kind. Think of the summer days, sitting under the tree, listening to the birds singing, hearing dogs bark, people talking to each other, children eating ice cream, having fun in the fresh air in such a beautiful open space as Old Down. During lockdown, Old Down was very important to Basingstoke and Dean as it helped people keep not only physically fit but mentally. It's also given them space for outings with their kids who were stuck at home. Old Down is so important to our wildlife in Hampshire, such as a blue butterfly and other important insects and mammals. Our generations must protect green spaces like these for the next coming generations, as I feel that it would be for them sitting down under the tree thinking of how lucky they have been and such great environment they have, thinking and saying thank you to the past generations who had changed the course of destiny for Old Down and other green spaces. As a child, I used to watch a movie called Blade Runner, where the world was always dark, the weather was really extreme, warm, steamy, steam coming out of the ground and raining all the time. During that time I watched the movie, none of us were thinking of the environment, but the marvels that were shown in the movie, such as the big screens, the buildings, the flying cars, the world that was lonely. Even at a young age, I would ask myself, watching that movie, would I like to be in the world where it's always dark, you do not see any green spaces, getting fresh air? The truth was, that made me very sad, thinking this could be the world I may see in my lifetime. We, the council, can start changing this by voting for this motion, making sure that all these moments are not lost in time like tears in the rain. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I understand that this is seconded by Councillor Hannah Golding. Councillor Golding.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Can I reserve my right to speak, please?
Thank you very much. Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm delighted to speak in support of this unexpected motion, I have to say. Paul Beavers, who's sitting at the back of council again, he's been to so many meetings, he's now 5th on the list to be mayor, I understand, in trying to get Old Down protected. 2007, he grabbed his shovel, went over there. 2010, he asked the council to protect the site. It was promised it was an absolute priority for the Conservatives at that time. In 2013, autumn 2013, I think it was, might be autumn 2014, my memory fades, a petition of over 2,000 signatures was brought to this very chamber. And they were told by the Conservative administration that this would be an absolute priority for the Conservatives to protect this site. So it's delightful, really, to be here just 8 years after it was adopted as a Conservative priority, that the Conservatives have turned up to ask themselves to do something about what they should have done a long time ago. So absolutely support it. It is unfortunately a reminder of what we're witnessing, that classic comedy that is Carry On Conservatives. But I think we should all support this to make sure, one, that Old Down is protected, and secondly, we don't have to bear a sequel. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I very much support the motion, and I've always supported that Old Down should become a nature reserve. And Councillor James is right. It has taken us years, even to get to this point, of a motion from the Conservative group to ask their cabinet again, will they go around and support Old Down? Now, the reason we've been given over the years is that Old Down has been required as a bargaining chip in all the negotiations to do with the land assemblies in the south of the town. And there comes a point when it comes to, well, what is more important, actually? That you need Old Down as a bargaining chip, or actually you're willing to put Old Down as a local nature reserve, which is what the local communities want. And that's the fundamental point here. There were good reasons given, to be fair, to Councillor Raffel when he stood up last time he was asked, would he do it? And it's only not a short while ago he was asked to do it, and his response was, well, we need it to be sorted through first. We need to do the things that we need to do first. So, okay, that doesn't get anywhere further forward, which is the same game that Councillor James has just described. We go round and round in circles. If these green spaces, and it's not the only one, I can think of Saunders Field, I can think of many other critical green spaces across the borough that we want to protect, should be given these status, then stop messing around with it and just do it. Give Old Down the local nature reserve status that we want, and let's achieve something that I think we could all agree with and would be incredibly positive for the borough and for the residents in that area who thoroughly enjoy it and just don't want it threatened in any way, shape or form in the future. This isn't difficult. It shouldn't be difficult. It should be very straightforward. So I wholly support the motion, but the motion isn't the point. The point is, what are the Cabinet going to do? Are they going to go with it or not? And I hope they will. I hope we'll hear tonight, yes, we embrace this motion, and we will take the executive action to turn it into a local nature reserve and not kick it in the long grass. Very more of the future.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Eachus.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't think I need to say much because most of it's been said and I agree with everything that's been said. There were reasons we couldn't do it before. I did try to work the council, we fell on it, but we're here and I hope that we can now just get on with it, and I totally support the motion and want to work with the rest of my cabinet colleagues to get Old Down the status it absolutely deserves.
Thank you very much. And for the new councillors, that's a classic example of avoiding repetition, because it's been said before and we can get on with business. I acknowledge Councillor McCormick. Councillor Taylor, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I'm going to do the same. I don't want to repeat everything that's been said. This is just so welcome, it really is. I visited Old Down just this morning just to refresh my memory, and I normally visit it from the A30 at the pedestrian access. This time I went through Gabriel Park, and coming to Old Down, it was like going to the back of the wardrobe and coming into a completely new world. It was just so welcome. And with the beautiful meadow, you haven't been there, lovely meadow surrounded by trees, and so much careful thought goes into it. And then, of course, I turned round and looked northwest towards Oakley, beautiful undulating fields, a lovely rural scene, and I could have wept because, as you all know, before too long, that is almost certainly going to be housing estates. But we are where we are, and it's because of that that this is even more important to protect, for the sake not only of the residents of Hatchwarren, Beggarwood and Kempshott who already live there, but the future residents of South Many Down. This will be an oasis for them, and it is just so vital for well-being, so I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Now I'm going to flip to Councillor McCormack for fairness, because we'd like to get the balance on the side of the House. And I acknowledge that Councillor Peter and Councillor Putty and Councillor Bean are due to speak, and that'll probably sum this up. Councillor McCormack.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So, I'm happy to support this. We have had numerous attempts at trying to protect various pieces of valued rural land in and around the south and west of Basingstoke. Sometimes we've succeeded, sometimes we've tied ourselves in knots over it. I also note that we had a petition at the last full council that was going to be considered by the Environment and Community Services team. I presume that this eclipses that and we'll have direct action from the Cabinet. The only question I have really is there was something about designating a site as special scientific interest. I'd like to know what the evidential basis is for that, because they are really quite unique sites. We do have one or two in the borough, like the Basingstoke Canal Tunnel at Greywell, which is a site of national significance, the largest colony of bats, naturist bats in the UK. It's a very tall order. We have numerous sites of importance to nature conservation, like Popley Ponds and things like that. I presume if there's significant biodiversity in Old Down, it would at least become a sink. The other question I guess we would all have is, where does this leave our local plan? And I suppose I better declare an interest in this, because I grew up in Kempshott and my dad still lives not far from Fuzzy Drove, and Old Down's not that far away. And we're looking at putting 9,500 houses near there and all sorts of other things, like a new hospital, a new road, a new warehouse complex, provided DC can give it planning permission. You know, where does that leave us? I think it is really important, though, that we do get some kind of corridor that connects the North Wessex Downs area of outstanding natural beauty with the South Downs. If we don't do this, we do risk in future years coalescence and contiguous development. And for that reason alone, I'm happy to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to talk about a couple of very important ecological aspects of this motion. So wherever we go in the world, we can see three types of birds: farmland species, wetland species, and woodland species. So all down, we have mainly woodland species. So because of globally, because of this deforestation, cutting down the trees and damage of this natural habitats, everything. So we are losing these bird species everywhere. And at the moment, these species are facing serious extinction. And at the moment, the extinction rate is more than 10,000 times than what was happening in the last decades. So what we have to understand is how the basic theory of ecology is nothing can stand alone. That means we are also relying on these species for our survival. So if we convert all these, natural habitat and these ecologically important green lands to developments, when I teach, I used to tell my students, we won't be having the next generation here to live there. So we have to take it very, very seriously. Again, some people may say, we will plant some trees somewhere else. First of all, they need to understand planting some trees somewhere else is not at all a substitute for natural habitat. So whatever happens, we need to take action to protect these old down as a natural reserve. So we have to take it seriously. Otherwise, it is directly connected to our own survival on this planet. So not only all down, we should not allow to damage any of our natural habitat and greenland for developments. So I support this motion. I request all my fellow councillors to take appropriate action to stop these developments. Thank you.
Thank you for your maiden speech, Councillor Peake. Councillor Putty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am so delighted of the all-party support for this motion. I am not going to repeat, like my colleagues, what has already been said, but all I can say that it is a place of natural beauty where we can, and I personally enjoy fresh air and light exercise. I do my walk and enjoy things around me when I go there. I look towards money down, and a great sadness fills me. When you are standing in Old Down, you can see what money down is about and what it's going to become. And it really makes you feel what is happening in our borough. But anyway, we have to preserve and protect such an oasis, like Councillor Diane Taylor said, of natural beauty for the community, and approve the motion for Eleanor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Putty. Again, for balance, Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies for my nervousness. I believe this would be my maiden speech. I had wanted to be changing the world, or at least changing Basingstoke with that maiden speech, but it looks like it's going to be agreeing with pretty much what everyone has said tonight. Back in 2018, when I stood against the late Anne Court in a by-election, residents back then were saying that they wanted Old Down to be protected as a nature reserve, and I fully agreed with them. As a runner, I use that site pretty frequently. It's some of the only good trails around the area that you can run in these days. My only concern, and I wouldn't be, I guess, a good opposition councillor if I wasn't raising a concern, is that, to me, the motion seems a little bit toothless. At the last council meeting, it was agreed that within the next 12 months, that the council would look at making this a nature reserve. What I don't want to see is in 12 months' time, just as Councillor James seems to have gone through over the years of service to the council, another motion to council to protect Old Down. So I don't know how, maybe excuse my naivety on this, but I don't know how we can make this stronger so that council actually, or the cabinet actually do something between now and the next 12 months, so that in 12 months' time, we're not having to sit here again debating whether now Old Down should be a nature reserve or not. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any maiden speech is a good maiden speech, because you got to get it out of the way and bang go the nerves. Yes. Councillor Bean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel terrible because I was going to sit on my hands. However, given that I use Old Down every single day because I live right next to it, I felt that almost compelled to stand up and speak in support of the motion. Similar to Councillor Lee, I regularly run, only today, along the tree line at the bottom of Old Down. There are people walking their dogs all the time. You see children walking down to Kempshire School on a daily basis. So you only need to visit it to see how well used and loved it is by the local community. I appreciate there is a lot of history surrounding Old Down, but I think I can speak on behalf of Cabinet that there is an absolute commitment to make this happen this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bean. I had no more speakers. I call on the seconder, Councillor Golding, for her 5 minutes.
I will not take 5 minutes, but thank you, Mr. Mayor. For those of you who haven't ever been to Old Down, it's 12 hectares of ex-farmland. It includes mature woodland and wildflower-rich chalk downland, which is a priority habitat. And it really does, as you've already heard, make it a wild oasis in the middle of lots of residential development. And it might surprise some of you to know that Old Down, although it's next to Kempshire, is also right next to Oakley and the Candovers, because the estate of Longacre is in our ward. And it's right next door, and it's where those residents who really value this space can go and walk their dogs, they can take their kids to explore, or simply just go for a walk and take a breath in some unstructured space. And it's this natural wildness that genuinely makes this place really special, and that's what needs protecting for this generation and others to come. I'm so glad we've got support around the Chamber to designate this as this beautiful area as a nature reserve. We've heard from the residents in their petition, and I certainly will be nagging Cabinet sooner than 12 months, I suspect, to make sure this happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Golding. Would the proposer like to sum up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel that this should be done because it's not only about us, it's about the future generations who will thank us for saving green, not only Old Down, but other green spaces. But we can start off with Old Down, because I've lived in that part of Basingstoke for almost 40 years, and I've seen other parts disappear, other green areas. So the areas we do have, please, let's protect them for the future generations to come, and to enjoy it ourselves. And it was so useful to people for mental health reasons as well during lockdown, and keeping themselves physically fit. So it's not only about nature, but it's also about human health and the life of quality we have as well. So I'm going to appeal once more, please, let's protect these for ourselves and the future generations. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Chamber.
Thank you very much. I get the feeling around the Chamber that there seems to be a wide area of agreement on this. Are we agreed to accept this motion? Agreed. Thank you. And this motion will go to Cabinet to take all the necessary steps to declare Old Down as a local nature reserve. Thank you very much. Move on to agenda item number 15. Again, refer to the update paper. And just to remind everybody that it's 2 minutes for an answer, a minute for a supplementary question, a minute for a supplementary answer, and a maximum of 40 minutes in total for question time. On the update paper, we have one councillor making the questions. And for number one, Councillor McCormack, to the Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, given the successful planning appeal decision published immediately after local elections allowing the building on the Camrose ground, what will the council do to help Basingstoke Town Community Football Club realise its ambitions for the future.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In short, I believe the biggest thing that we can do as a council is assist the club to hear what the planning inspector has identified. When I read the decision notice, which I've done several times, some things are very, very clear to me, and I hope they're very, very clear to the club. What the planning inspector has written is a defining document for the history of this town and the history of Basingstoke Town Community Football Club. I invite the club to build and share with the town their ambitions and their business plan.
Do you have a supplementary, Councillor McCoy?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So, will the leader consider a more active role by the council in assisting the club, as plenty of other councils have done in other parts of the country, like Ipswich, who own the ground for Ipswich FC, like Slough, like Bury, who've protected the ground for Bury FC, even though the club went bankrupt? The public perception, as the leader well knows, is that the council really couldn't care less about Basingstoke FC. A number of us councillors vehemently disagree with that notion, and I would like to see what the council leader and the administration is prepared to do to step up and play a more active role to facilitate the club achieving its ambitions to go higher in the Football League. A town the size of Basingstoke should have some club that's knocking on the door of the Football League and not league locked in its current position in the Isthmian League. Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's be very, very clear. The council was key in getting the club back playing in this town. When the previous president phoned me to say, Simon, you need to intervene, the football club had been thrown out of the Camrose. They had, or were about to have, absolutely no legal interest in the Camrose, and they were desperate to be returned to this town, to play in the town that they love playing for. We haven't entered into the discussions for the 27% of the ownership that we own on the Camrose, and specifically the owner of the freehold has excluded us because we will not discuss being part of that with them. I could not be more disappointed by the mitigation provision for the loss of the Camrose Stadium as laid out by Sport England in their consultee response. They are responsible, not us. I repeat, I look forward to the football club sharing their ambitions and their business plan.
Thank you. Move on to question number 2, Councillor McCormack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, the leader, with all due respect, has not quite answered my second question, so I'll ask it anyway. As per the order paper, my concern, and many, is that the club is currently league locked at its Winklebury ground.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have always been supportive of the football club being at Winklebury for as long as they need. That was very clear when we had those conversations, and we have built it in to the arrangements for the lease for Hants FA. Councillor McCormick knows very well that the mitigation identified by Sports England is listed in their response to the application and has been scrutinised by the planning inspector. Again, they have ambition. It is not true to say that all of those activities that have been carried out by the football club over the years have historically all happened in one location. Let's look at their ambition, let's look at their plans, and let's work with them.
Supplementary, Councillor McCoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, if the club becomes promoted and finds that it cannot play at Winklebury, what would the council do then to assist them?
Councillor Brown.
I would love to see a plan that talked about what the options were and how everybody and every organisation in this borough can assist them.
Move to question 3, Councillor McCoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure to what extent the leader is aware of the parking problems plaguing the residents of Winkelbury as a direct result of hundreds of fans going to the Hants FA ground on match days for Basingstoke FC. When Winkelbury was considered as the home ground, it was very much a case that the parking was almost glossed over in as much as, oh, well, we've got plenty of parking the other side of the railway line in the leisure park. That does not appear to have worked. I've had various representatives of fans and club people saying to me sometimes they can't even get a key to unlock the car park the other side of the railway line. The situation on match days is extreme in some cases. Cars parked all along Winkelbury Way, Willoughby Way, Wilmot Way, to the detriment of residents and their access. So what is the council leader prepared to do about it? Thank you.
Councillor Bound.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think it's strictly true. Parking in the vicinity of the complex has been on the agenda from before the pitch was upgraded to all weather and before Basingstoke Community Town Football Club moved in. Only last night I went past the complex and cars were along the edge of Winkelbury Way, with the car park having lots of empty spaces, and it was only a local community juniors club event. Hampshire Football Association then and now have committed to a travel plan and subsequent management to adhere to that plan, as have Basingstoke Town Community Football Club and the local community club. I would encourage the local ward councillors to work with all parties to resolve any outstanding issues. There are new councillors, and I really wouldn't want to tell them how to do their job as local ward councillors. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bound. A supplementary. Councillor McCormack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm a bit aggrieved actually to hear that it is not true. Just driving down Winkelbury Way on one night and then assuming that there's a conclusive evidence is not really, that doesn't really cut it. There are numerous instances, and if you talk to Winkelbury residents, as our newly elected councillor has done, you will know that it's a big problem, and it appears that the council is willing not to do anything about it, instead passing the bat on to Hampshire County Council. We do actually own land that we could use, and I would like to see some constructive and inventive solutions on this. Do I have that assurance?
I repeat, I am more than happy as the leader of this administration to work with local ward councillors, and the part that I'm saying is not true, that it was brushed over. It is hardly brushed over when there is a formal travel plan which all parties who use that facility have signed up to.
Thank you, Councillor Bound. Councillor McCormack, question 4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, one of the things that was really quite surprising about the planning inspector's conclusions was when the Development Control Committee deliberated this planning application, we were very clear that we needed 2 football stadiums in Basingstoke. We currently have just one at Winkelbury, and it is manifest that there are many people wanting to use those facilities, and it's difficult to accommodate all of them. We definitely need a second stadium. So what's the council going to do to realise the pent-up demand for football at various levels? And Basingstoke FC do an awful lot of community, women's, youth, children's football, and the same is true of other clubs that share the facilities like Winkelbury Wizards. You know, we should be encouraging this, and at the moment, if we don't send out the positive signals, we could be seen to be putting a brake on sports participation, which is a desired goal of this council. We've had at least 2 motions on driving up sports participation that I moved when I was previously on the council as part of the Olympics. We seem to not be very good at capitalising on these things, so I would want that assurance off the leader. Thank you.
Councillor Bound.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From all the reports that I have, Hants FA, as the primary managers of the complex, have confirmed, and it is in fact included in the inspector's report, that the facilities at Winkelbury have the availability for Basingstoke Town Community Football Club in a typical week as being up to 24 hours for use of the meeting rooms, 11 hours use of the 3G match pitch, 5 hours in addition for match games every other week, and 12 hours use of the 3G training pitches. Indeed, the inspector went as far as to say no credible evidence was produced to the inquiry to demonstrate how the above arrangements were constraining the club's activities. I have considerable sympathy for those supporters who want to see the town return to having 2 football stadiums. But whatever the rights and wrongs of how we've ended up where we've ended up, perhaps Councillor McCormick has the evidence. And perhaps he has a compelling business plan to achieve such an outcome. May I suggest he shares it both with Basingstoke Town Community Football Club and the council officers. We can then all support the stated objective of making Basingstoke Town Community Football Club successful and sustainable.
Thank you. And Cormac, a supplementary question, please.
Okay, I have a supplementary question. I do think that response was somewhat patronising. It's not for me to come up with a business plan, and he well knows it. My question is this. The take-home for residents is no. The council doesn't want to help. The council will wait until other people do things. We'll wait for a business plan. We won't do anything. The council's had years to get on top of this problem. Will we ever see a second stadium in Basingstoke?
Councillor Bound.
I would sincerely love to support somebody who comes up with a credible business plan that delivers a second stadium.
Thank you. There are no more questions. We move on to agenda item 16, questions to the Chair of Cabinet or to a committee. Councillor Harvey. And you could state which committee and the date, please.
Audit and Accounts, 23rd of March, Corporate Risk Register, and the Chair may want to bat this to the leader, given the question I'm going to ask. On that Corporate Register, we obviously identified the risks associated to this council. It's the grid that shows the yellow, the red and the amber and so on. In light of the appeal decision on the football ground, this council has a 29% land interest in the Camrose. Given that appeal result, the risks associated with that, our land, the land that this borough owns in trust for the public, I would like to know, either from the chair or from the council leader, what this council intends to do with its 29% land interest. Because in my view, that is a huge stake in what happens to that site going forward. And I think the public have a right to know, because it's their land, what this council will do with that 29% land interest, particularly as it's actually only valued in the risk, in the actual assets, as for £10,000. Now, I don't know about you in terms of property valuations, but I think that 29% is worth a lot more than £10,000.
Councillor Faulkner? Or Councillor Bound, are you going to take this one?
Very happy to take it. I think we need to be really clear that that piece of land is still subject to a lease. I'm sure that has an impact on the value. I'm not sure the risk of that has changed, but I'm more than prepared to issue everybody with a written response.
Thank you, Councillor Bound. Any more questions to...
Can I just clarify, will that written response be public or just shared with councillors?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything particularly secret about the reality. In some respects, I'm sure quite a lot of that detail's already been put into the public domain, Mr. Mayor, so happy for it to be public.
There being none, there's nothing more on the agenda for this evening, and I close this council meeting at 10 minutes to 8.